I have with me today Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser, head of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. And I'm Maayan Hoffman, executive editor of ILTV News, and I welcome you back to the ILTV News podcast, where today we're going to talk about the latest in the Iran-Israel war and the general conflict. And welcome to you, Yossi.
Thank you very much for having me, Maayan.
Now, I want to start by talking about the latest, which is that we are likely entered a ceasefire, a period of ceasefire between Israel and Iran. What does the path forward look like, therefore, for Iran's nuclear program? Does it mean that we've actually destroyed the program? Has Iran shifted strategy? Do you believe they are actually going to give up the idea of enriching uranium?
Well, it's hard to say. We are just in a very initial stages after the war is over. There's a ceasefire. We have to assess what actually happened. But one thing is clear. We caused a very, 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 very severe damage to the Iranian nuclear program. All the main facilities of the program were hit. The scientists, many of the chief scientists were eliminated. And much of the capabilities of the Iranians were hurt because of what happened in the last 12 days. And what's more important than just the damage directly inflicted on the program is that it's the United States and Israel together crossing this Rubicon of whether they are going to take a military action against the program or not. They've done it already. So from now on, whenever we are going to be faced with an attempt of the Iranians to make any progress in their nuclear program, we shall not wait until the last moment in order to take action and make sure that they don't make any progress, but we shall probably, with our new self-confidence about our abilities to do what we need to do, we'll do it much earlier. And the Iranians know it, the Americans understand it, we are totally in it and for it, and I think that that's clear. That's going to be very difficult for the Iranians to resume the activities. On top of that, because of the practical reasons of damage done to the program. I want to say in this respect that some of the elements of the Iranian nuclear project are irreplaceable. The scientists are irreplaceable. It's going to take a long time to come up with these new scientists. But even more so, the conversion facility in Isfahan is irreplaceable unless somebody is ready to provide the Iranians with a new facility, which will be a breach of the NPT. And I don't think the Chinese are going to do that. They are not going to have the capability to convert the enriched uranium into metal. And without converting the enriched uranium into metal, you just cannot produce a nuclear weapon. So we caused a very severe damage to the program.
That's so fascinating. And I mean, I guess the question then comes from it. First of all, I mean, when you mentioned the Iranian scientists, I do just want to ask, I think we killed 14, 15 of the key scientists. How do we know that there weren't more people in line? How deep the list of scientists goes that actually know how to carry through with the program?
Well, for sure they have more scientists, but these were the leading scientists and they had the information and the know-how that was developed in this specific issue of weaponization. We took the scientists that were involved were supposed to be involved in the weaponization program. And this causes a very severe damage to the ability to move forward and that part of the nuclear program, which is critical. And on top of that, we have taken away from them back in 2018 the papers that included all the information about how to weaponize the uranium. And this time we attacked the headquarters of Sapand, the program, the nuclear program. We attacked this headquarters twice, just to make sure that no documentation is left. And we attacked another place that was supposed to be holding some of the archives. So it's going to be difficult for them to find out what they have done already back between 2000 and 2003, when they were working on this weaponization program. So it's not going to be easy for them to overcome this loss.
That makes sense. Now, if Iran does choose to violate the ceasefire agreement, and I don't mean a lone missile here or there, or somebody who didn't know, and went against the program, but let's say Iran does choose to, say yes, we're in a ceasefire, but then go ahead and carry out some kind of attack. What form could that take? And is there anything that Israel should still be doing to be prepared? The Home Front Command might start to lift all of the regulations, but is there anything that we should keep in place in order to ensure the safety of Israelis?
For sure. First of all, we never feel that we can trust the Iranians. So we have to be very much on the alert. And the one thing has not changed, their hate towards Israel. I mean, President Trump said that this is the end. He hopes this is the end of hate. But wait a minute. This is not going to change overnight. These slogans of death to Israel and death to the United States are not going to disappear immediately. So it's going to take time, and even if they cannot, or it's too risky for them to launch a missile attack, because clearly Israel is going to respond, and maybe even the United States is going to respond and inflict a very heavy damage on them. But they still can try and use their terror capabilities. They still can try and use their cyber capabilities. They have all kinds of capabilities that may harm us, and they can use terror abroad. They can use terror inside the United States. They have all kinds of dormant cells over there. There's a lot of ways in which they can operate. Definitely, all the ways of operation that they had, the ways of action were problematic. The fact is that when they were faced with the Israeli and the American attack, and they promised that the world is going to come to an end just because the Americans attacked them, when faced with the question, so what do we do now that we said what we said, they came to the conclusion that what they are going to do is to launch certain missiles and tell the United States in advance that they are sending them, and pray that no American is going to be hurt. That's where we stand. And yes, they can do all kinds of things, but they are weak, and they've become much weaker due to what happened in the last 12 days. And they understand it. They know it. As a matter of fact, the weakness is not only because of what happened to their nuclear program and ballistic missiles program, but and their ability to support the terror groups around the Middle East with the fall of Assad and the damage done to Hezbollah and to Hamas and all of that, and the loss of Izzadi and Shahriyar, two key persons that were in charge of supporting all these terror groups around the Middle East. But the damage is harsher because everybody in Iran now understand that this regime led them nowhere. I mean, all the crown jewels that they had that were taking so much of the Iranian budget, and on the expense of the population of Iran, at the expense of the economy of Iran, and at the expense of the prosperity of Iran, that could have been a very prosperous country. The nuclear project and the support for terrorism were two, and the missile project, so much money was spent on that, and all of that collapsed overnight. All of that became ashes. And so there's definitely, I think, very difficult questions the Iranian leadership would have to respond to in the coming few days. They chose survival instead of going to a full war because they understood that they are in danger. And the steps we've taken towards the end of the war, focusing on this regime capabilities, regime assets, was very dangerous for the regime, and this is one of the reasons why they were ready to go for the ceasefire. But in order to stay in power, they will have to give an answer to all these questions, and they don't have good answers.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, and I want to go back to what you mentioned about this sort of like theatrical attack against the U.S. bases. They launched these rockets, the 13 missiles, and only one of them struck down. They warned the Americans in advance. The goal was to have it land in an open field. Nobody was hurt. Is this an indication that Iran is actually quite fearful of U.S. President Donald Trump? Do you believe that because of those attacks on the nuclear facilities, that Iran is kind of shaking in its seats? Maybe this regime, not only, as you mentioned, in front of its own people, but also in front of the world?
For sure. I think that what happened is that President Trump showed resolve, commitment, and readiness to take risks in order to make sure that the security of the world, security of the United States, and the security of Israel are being taken care of. And he made it clear to the Iranians that if they are going to play around with him, he's going to charge them with a much heavier price. And they had to take him seriously, and they did. And that's why they did what they reacted the way they reacted. So it's clear that when you are determined to do what needs to be done in order to defend yourself and make sure that you are not allowing all kinds of very dangerous threats to flourish and develop, and then people take you seriously, and they take us seriously now, and they take the United States and under Trump seriously. And this helps create a new situation vis-a-vis Iran, but also vis-a-vis the Middle East in general. People understand that this alliance between Israel and the United States is really firm and strong, and that the United States and Israel are not going to be shy about taking necessary steps in order to make sure that their security is guaranteed. And once this is the case, I mean, the Middle East is going to look different. The Iranian-led axis has fallen apart. First of all the proxies disappeared, and then Iran suffered this heavy loss. They cannot. They can speak highly even now. They can speak about the need to kill Israel and the United States. That's fine, but they don't have the tools to make this happen. And everybody in the region would understand that the strong horse is the alliance between Israel and the United States. And there's no point in being friends with the radical Iranian regime. We'd rather be friends of the United States and Israel. This creates all kinds of new opportunities for Israel and the United States. We are able to move forward towards strengthening the normalization trend between us and the Arab states, based on the Abraham Accords, and maybe broadening it. And because people understand this is where power is. They want to be with the powerful. And
For sure.
I think this is going to give us all kinds of opportunities. And beyond that, I think it's also on the global stage, the fear that the Iranians have from President Trump and the way he led this activity is going to be echoing in all over the world, and it's going to weaken China and Russia and those who were part of this axis together with Iran that wanted to weaken the West and weaken the United States. And we are moving towards a new situation in the world that would give the United States the power to try again, maybe this time more successfully, to bring an end to all kinds of open conflicts around the globe. We are most interested in Gaza. We hope that this is going to bring an end to the Gaza story, a happy ending where the hostages are going to be released and Hamas will give up the control of Gaza. That's what we expect. And I think that now that Hamas is much weakened because it lost the capability to rely on the Iranians, this is going to be a move forward.
100%. I do want to get into the Gaza war in just a moment, but I want to take a step back to Saudi Arabia that you mentioned, the idea of normalization. So obviously we had been on the cusp of normalization really before October 7th, and there was this idea that we were going to sign some kind of agreement to expand the Abraham Accords. And the base of those accords, beyond the economic prosperity, was really about being able to protect the region from Iran. UAE, Bahrain, etc., got involved, and Saudi Arabia backed those accords, partially because Israel was seen as such a superpower. Obviously, October 7th, changed that slightly. And now here we see the incredible efforts by Israel, the actions by Israel, and again, the lack of daylight between the U.S. and Israel that showed that we are on the same page and very strong together. How quickly do you believe that we could see some kind of normalization? And do you believe that dictate by Saudi Arabia that there must be a path for a Palestinian state before normalization could come off the table?
Well, first of all, I think the amazing stuff is that we did all that we have done together with the United States without putting Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain and Qatar maybe to a lesser extent, in danger. I mean, there was an attack on Qatar, but the attack was not on Qatar. The attack was on the American base.
Right.
And And they were fearful that if something erupts between us and the Iranians, they are going to be a target for the Iranian ire. This didn't happen, and I think they are realizing that they were too fearful and without justification, and that Israel knows how to deal with this matter and navigate in a way that would keep them safe. I think they highly appreciate that. By the way, this is not the end of the Iranian story. I think now we shall have to move on the Iranian story to make sure that there is some sort of a deal that would allow us to, the United States, to verify that the Iranians are not doing anything regarding the nuclear project. So this is going to keep the Gulfies calm even more so, because they would probably know that they shouldn't have to worry about the future. This is something very important. And we have to understand, if the Iranians are not going to accept such a deal, I hope there's not going to be a lifting of the sanctions. Right. And, so if Iran wants to be great again, as President Trump offers them, they will have to accept the deal that was presented to them in the beginning, and they will have to open the nuclear facilities and the nuclear activities to ongoing verification. Once this happens, the Gulfies and Saudi Arabia are going to feel much more secure, and I think that this will enable them to move forward towards normalization with Israel. This can be a gradual process. It's not going to encompass everything in 1 minute. I think we should start with all kinds of economic cooperation activities, ventures that would put the benefit in front of the people, that they will understand how good it's going to be once they cooperate with Israel. The full normalization can wait a little bit, because I don't see a solution to the Palestinian problem. We are not going to allow a Palestinian state to emerge. We had a Palestinian state sort of in Gaza. We saw exactly what happened. We shall have to wait until the Palestinian narrative is going to change before we can consider a Palestinian state, and this is not going to happen anytime soon. So the Saudis will have to understand that, and they can move towards normal relations with Israel, not directly to the end and of open embassies and things like that, if they insist on a Palestinian state. But economic delegations can be exchanged, and economic cooperation can be put in place. And this is something very much in the benefit of both Israel and the United States and Saudi Arabia, and everybody else was going to join. We can think of Syria, of Ashara as another candidate, if he really means peace and stability. We can think of Lebanon, now that Hezbollah has much less capability to affect the situation in Lebanon. And of course, we can think of other countries in the Middle East and beyond. We can think of Indonesia and Malaysia as places that may join in the future. If Saudi Arabia is going to move in this direction, why won't they? They can benefit of that just as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I mean, I think also I was wondering in terms of just the regime change concepts in Iran, do you feel that as we start to move to see more normalization, more partnerships in the region, and then again, the internal unrest that's going to happen there, that there's a lot that these Iranian leaders are going to have to explain to their people, do you think that it's possible that you'll see the people rise up and there will still be regime change in Iran, and then the possibility of closer relations or normalization between Iran and Israel?
Yes, but it's hard to envisage how exactly this is going to happen, because the Iranians are fearful from the regime. They worry that the Basij is going to kill them, or the RGC is going to kill them if they go to the streets. So I think it's more plausible that the change will be gradual. But I'm not sure that this is really going to happen. But there's an option also of a gradual change. I mean, somebody like, it's not exactly the same story, but somebody like Gorbachev leading the way to a change, still coming from within the regime, and but leading in a different direction of openness to the West and the readiness to cooperate with Israel. The Iranian people want to see that happening. The Iranian people is eager to see that happening. And the Iranian people have unbelievable potential that is not used under the current conditions. So I think that they really pray for that to happen. And this would spare them the stage of uncertainty and instability, and everybody there is worried about what's going to happen if there's going to be a revolution. So maybe what they need is some sort of an evolution that can happen from within the ranks of the government, because you know that there is an ongoing tension between the more the reformists and the conservatives inside Iran all the time. And we might see the strengthening of the reformists on the expense of the radicals inside the government in Iran.
And tell me this. I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned Hezbollah, of course, has been so substantially weakened, and it really stayed unusually quiet during the escalation between Iran and Israel. We've done some tremendous work against Hamas, though it still is ruling in the Gaza Strip. Bringing up the Gaza war, which, of course, has been ongoing throughout this entire Iran Israel conflict, we have managed, since we began more forceful operations in the end of March, to bring 9 of the 59 hostages home. Those are 9 dead bodies, unfortunately, but 9 of them home. There was a big debate when we started to increase force in Gaza as to whether or not that was the right way to bring about the redemption of the hostages. It's starting to appear that perhaps that was really the only choice. What are your thoughts on that? And how will the conclusion of this Iran-Israel war bring about potentially the conclusion of the Hamas war?
Well, as I said, Hamas is much weaker now that Iran was suffering all these losses. And it's an opportunity for us, because it's also, the spirit in the air is of closing all kinds of open cases. So it's they would have to see what they can do. Now Israel has much more attention to what's happening in Gaza. We spent some fortnight now dealing with Iran, but now we can focus again on Gaza. It's not that we neglected Gaza during that period of time, but it wasn't the number one issue. And now it's going to be the number one issue, and we're going to put much more pressure on Hamas. And we have managed already to make some progress in denying Hamas the capability to control the aid that was coming and given to the population by the putting in place of the system led by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF. So Hamas understands that it is losing power by the day. And the fact that we managed to find all these bodies and bring them home is also a reflection of that. And so we got better information. And I think by now, the original idea was let's have a ceasefire and bring back half of the living hostages and so on and so forth. I think by now, it's with the changes that occurred now, we should go for a full deal that would say something like, you bring back all the hostages, we shall release some of the terrorists in jail from jail, as we promised to do originally. But you are going to give up the control of Gaza. You are going to be disarmed. Those of you who want to leave can leave. You can leave through Egypt to Algeria or to wherever you want. And let's put an end to the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza. That's how long these people are going to suffer. And they're suffering just because of your stubbornness. So let's put an end to that. And you see what happens to those who insist on fighting. We are going to put more and more pressure on you. So think again and look, take an example from your friends in Iran. They decided to go for a ceasefire. So follow their advice. And I think that we have better tools now to convince them to go this way. The Qataris were instrumental in doing that with the Iranians. They definitely have more leverage on Hamas than they have on Iran. So I hope there's an open ear now to these arguments in Hamas. If not, they may, it's not easy for them. I understand. It's admitting that the 7th of October was a mistake. I mean, you don't need really to admit it. Everybody knows it was a mistake already. Look what happened to all your friends. You caused terrible damage to Hezbollah. You made the Assad lose the power. You made the Iranians lose their nuclear project and the missile project. And your friend Izzadi was killed, that was in charge of providing money to you and thinking with you about the future. He was killed. All of that has happened to just because you made this decision on the 7th of October. And look at Gaza. Look at what happened to Gaza. I mean, the only people that were doing the right thing were the people of the Judean Samaria areas. They
Right.
stayed out of it, and the situation is relatively good. But what you did, caused this terrible damage to Gaza. God knows if there's a way to live in Gaza. Maybe people will have to just immigrate, and that's what you've done. Admit that you did it, and you took the wrong decision. Those who took the decision are not here anymore. Neither Yahya Sinwar, nor Muhammad Sinwar, nor Muhammad Deif. They are all gone. And Mr. Haddad, Izzeddin Haddad, that is leading now calling the shots in Gaza, should realize that, okay, it's a lost case, and let's give it up. If he is not going to be ready to do that, more suffering is promised to himself and to the people of Gaza. But any sensible person would take this decision and put an end to this war.
So, Yossi, in a short answer, I mean, do you believe that we're actually going to get then the remaining 50 hostages who are in Gaza back home? Do you envision that as we stand today, based on all the things you just described, that those people will be back with us soon?
Well, I sincerely hope so, but my profession is not to speak about wishful thinking. It's about an assessment. And I'm saying that all this soul searching that I did for Mr. Haddad is the soul searching that is probably going through his mind. It's just so difficult to say I was wrong. And I caused all of this damage because of my hubris, that I understand how difficult it is for him to take this decision, but he has to spend a day or two digesting the consequences of what his commanders did, and realizing that he should put an end to that. And there's a good chance that he's going to do that. I realize how difficult it is for him. But we are going to allow him to save his face by releasing those terrorists from jail. That's what he can get.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I want
He's
to
going
take
to
you
save his
just to
life.
Yossi, just to a final question because we only have about 2.5 minutes left. Looking 5 years ahead, what kinds of military, diplomatic, or even intelligence infrastructure should Israel prioritize in order to ensure that Iran, the situation with Iran as it stands today, which is so much better than it was for the last 30 years from what it looks like, stays in place? What should we be doing in order to make sure that Israel continues to be without the existential threat of Iran?
Well, we've got to have an excellent intelligence as we had that enabled us to have this operation. This is for sure. But on top of that, we have to continue using the new national security concept that was used in Iran, because it's not only that the Iranians had accumulated all this highly enriched uranium, and they were moving towards activating the weaponization team that we were so worried about, and so on and so forth. It's not only because they were so dangerous that was a key issue, but it was also not only because they were weak and vulnerable. It was basically because we had the new national security concept, according to which we are not going to allow such threats to emerge and become existential. And that's what we are doing in Gaza, and that's what we are doing in Lebanon. That's what we are doing in vis-a-vis Syria. That's what we are doing in the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria. We take these steps in order to make sure that such threats cannot emerge. We cannot rely only on early warning, with all due respect to intelligence. Early warning is problematic, and we just shouldn't allow these threats to emerge, and that's why we need this verification system that I was talking about regarding the Iranian nuclear project. We have to make sure that they don't move back to having things that they lost now. And once we employ this new national security concept, this will allow us to take care of all the threats that might emerge in the future. And there's no guarantee that the people around us will not try to come up with new ideas. War is always, and strategy is always a competition of learning. So
Right.
we
But
have
I
to
guess
learn
that where
fast,
we are, is
faster than
that
around.
100%. And I think where we are, though, hopefully, is that we are in a much better place than we were, just before this 12-day
Definitely.
war. And certainly we'll have to keep our eye on the ball. Well, thank you so much, Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser, for joining me today on the ILTV News podcast. I'm Maayan Hoffman, Executive Editor of ILTV News, and I thank you to all of our viewers and listeners for joining us today.